and physicians to open this panel to discuss the COVID-19 vaccinations, what has happened, where we're going, and where the future is. The first speaker is going to be Dr. Richard Ursa. He's inventor of the FDA-approved wound healing drug. With 11-year experience in lab work, he has treated 2,400 patients and is a co-founder of Global COVID Summit. After Richard, we're going to have Jessica Rose, Canadian researcher with bachelor's in applied mathematics and master's degree in immunology. Pierre Kory is a former chief of critical care and medical director of trauma and life support center of University of Wisconsin. Dr. Jose Augusto Nasser is Brazilian neurologist, professor at Columbia University in New York, member of Médico Pela Vidas, Panda, and Luc Montagnier Foundation. And our last speaker will join us a little bit later by Zoom, Dr. Paul Alexander, Canadian researcher with degree in epidemiology and doctorate in health research, methods, evidence, and impact. And we're going to start, thank you. We're going to start our discussion with Dr. Richard Ursa from the United States.
Thank you, Kat. We heard some great lectures this morning. It was really terrific. Thank you for World Council for Health for putting together such a wonderful event. It's really important that we have these collaborative events where we get everybody's input and how we can move forward. And it almost shocks me to think about how things started out. I still go back to those early months in 2020 where there's the novel coronavirus, and I couldn't understand why they kept calling it novel. It just seemed such a weird term, but now I understand it as goes along with man-made climate change and the unprovoked war with Ukraine. There has to be some way to sort of message, and I think overall this is what we've seen. They're very, very good. The other side's very good at messaging. So we'll talk a little bit more here today about the novel coronavirus. And I'm not sure where I'm supposed to point this, but maybe a battery change. But anyway, until I get these slides going. So I think messaging is a big, important thing because they've learned to keep us from liking each other, right? So great quote from Malcolm X, if you're not careful, you'll be hating the people who are actually being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And that's what we're seeing, right? If you're unvaccinated, you're a bad person. And we don't want to reverse that though. We don't want to say, hey, you're vaccinated, you're throwing off exosomes, please don't get in the room with me, even though that's true. Okay. And as I said, again, the messaging is wonderful. It's basically the same message over and over, and you'll see it on Twitter where people are just keep putting out the same information. Hey, it's a good thing I had that triple vaccination, or who knows how sick I might have been. And I think this is the elected leader of the world. Is this who we have here? Anybody vote for this person to lead the world? No, I didn't either. So, but this is kind of who's orchestrating this. And you think about that, the way they were able to accomplish what they accomplished is they've got their fingers everywhere. The prime minister and the cabinets of almost every government in the world have been through his school, the Young Global Leaders. And I think for people who don't know, and I think most of the people in this room do, this is how they've been so capable, right? They have leadership that has been created, and they put people into powerful positions that coordinated all the efforts that went behind this pandemic. They have good funding sources. Another fine European who has basically, been a very powerful factor in the United States and NGOs. And I recently heard in my office, I had my auditors in. We have a big office. I have 700 employees, and he was in telling me how we needed to get with all the new ways of messaging, he, her, him, or whatever we're supposed to do. And he said that I think the words were that these were grassroots efforts. So these grassroots efforts are funded with multiple millions of dollars through a person like this. So it's very important that we let people know this are not grassroots efforts. These are efforts that are funded. If you want to go and be paid, you can come to the United States and be a paid protester, and this man will probably help you get paid for that. This is not going to stop with COVID. We are going to have the movement towards cricket food, plant-based meat. This is all going to be, as you know, the Netherlands, which puts out a tremendous amount of raised beef, has been told they need to keep the planet from changing its environment because they just decided that that's how we're going to control the food supply is the next thing they're going to go after. So I want to get to what we're talking about here. You heard Dr. Bhakdi talk about this today, and this is so critical. The lipid nanoparticle messenger RNA platform is horrible. It doesn't matter what it is, it's horrible. It cannot be controlled. There are people here, including myself, who work with lipid nanoparticles. We were using chemotherapy to carry chemo to the brain. It's pretty good at getting to the brain. Unfortunately, we were wiping out the bone marrow, the adrenals, the ovaries, and other organs. And so we decided this is not a good strategy. And so it's basically one of the major reasons why any lipid nanoparticle platform with a foreign protein is going to be a problem. Because this foreign protein is going to be in places a respiratory virus doesn't go. In this case, the respiratory viruses go in your brain, your bone marrow, your adrenals, your ovaries. No, they don't. It's not what they do. Does less than 1% get into those tissues? Probably, but it's a very small amount. But the vaccine gets there in fairly large amounts, and this is a bad, bad strategy as we move forward. And then you see that the wonderful thing they did with this product was trying to get it to be to get into cells and be undetected by the immune system. And that's the pseudouridine component. And that has made the attainment of being able to say how much is each person being producing. We don't know. You may be producing 100 times more than I'm producing. So we have a biodistribution of everywhere. We have a pharmacokinetics where we don't know how much you're making, and we're saying it's safe and effective. How is that possible? Actually makes no sense. There's no way. I don't mind saying it. There's no way they're going to ever make a product that's safe and effective when you can't control the distribution and you can't control the production. And until they get to that, they should never go forward with any of these products, if you can't even do that. And then what did they... I'm gonna say, actually, if that's all you remember from this talk, that's the most important part. Honestly, that's the most important part. Now, where else did they screw up here, right? So they took the spike protein and they put things on it that block DNA damage repair, P53 and BRCA. Toll-like receptors 4, 7, and 8 are disturbed. It reverse transcribes easily in tissue culture. It's interferon suppression, which is super important in cancer and viruses. It's shedding. This is normal. It could be used for good. If we were going to do, let's say we're doing animals and we want to vaccinate, some of the animals and know that they're going to carry the rest of it back to the nest. It could be used for good. But in general, to say it doesn't exist is an absolute absurdity. It is what it is. It does that. That's what these things do. And I want to go through a few stats. In the United States, 40% more deaths from 2021, 84% more deaths in the last quarter in 25 to 44. And I left a few things off, but they also had this bind ACE2, TMPRSS2, the NRP1. You also see that there's this this GP120 fragment that's creating the prions. And one of our other speakers will talk about that today, so I won't talk about that anymore. But prions cause, of course, mad cow disease. We talked about this, COVID. It's killed science, logic, and medicine. What's our latest one? I thought this was funny. I actually made our national news somehow. I don't know. Somebody saw something I put on Twitter and put this on the national news. This doctor said that it was unreasonable to only test it on 8 mice. Does anybody agree with that? That that's reasonable? So it's almost laughable, right? So 8 mice, all of whom contracted the virus. So is anybody aware of that? Actually, we all contracted the virus, okay? I don't know if they went to the mouse hospital or not. I'm still trying to get the data on that, but I almost have to laugh, sorry. But that's what they're doing now. So we're doing things we've never done in science before. We're not testing them. And that's where they've got you now. It's like, hey, messenger RNA, lipid nanoparticle, it's safe and effective, we proved it. No, you didn't. You did not. It's not safe and effective, it's dangerous, it's going in a place you don't need it to go. You need to stop it. This is not right. So this is where we've gotten in the United States. They don't even do human testing anymore because it's so safe and effective. And you know, there's a bunch of studies they've done where they retracted. They did the fake Lancet study on hydroxychloroquine, and we have times where, you know, Pierre's done the best job on this, talking about how badly they've evaluated ivermectin. And I always say we know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. We know they're still lying. We know they're lying, but they're still lying. So I think we're never gonna beat them at that game. They're more conniving. They're more deceptive than we are, right? That's what they do. So I wanna just say, the worst part about it is they actually are trying to make you think that they're smart. They're not smart. They're cunning and deceptive and deceitful, right? They didn't invent a single thing. This group that I showed you at the beginning, the world leaders, nothing. They invented zero. Scientists invented the technology. And what I would usually like to say is they saw scientists making nuclear energy, and instead of making electricity, they made bombs. They upgraded these viruses. You just saw all the stuff I listed. They upgraded these viruses. Who cares if it was accidental or not? You should have never been doing this in any fashion. You should not have been making nuclear bombs. At that point, if you did it on purpose or not, it doesn't matter. I think I like this audience, thank you. And they're actually putting out the same garbage. They said the vaccine, they do mathematical modeling studies. I don't know who the mathematicians are. I think these are in grade school. But they found that the vaccine saved about 2 or 3 million people. This is not true. Who's it funded by? Funded by the usual suspects, okay? Gavi, et cetera, Bill Gates. What did Peter Doshi found? I don't know why Peter Doshi is doing what he's doing. I consider him to be amazing that he's able to put together some of this work that he's done and some of the other people with him. But he basically found that the vaccine, those original trials, for people who don't know, right? Those original trials, they actually had more adverse events, 187% more adverse events in the vaccinated that ended up in the hospital. Did you guys all know, do you guys know that data? A lot of you guys know that. And there was more deaths, I think it was like 22 to 13. So even in the original trials, they were failures. They didn't help with death, they didn't help with hospitalization. In fact, it was the other way around. I don't think I have much more time, so I'm gonna kind of zip a little bit. In England, I think you can look at the death rates in children and the triple vaxxed, and you can see, or the double vax, that it's such a harm. We don't have real good data in the United States. They've hid the data from us, right? So they stopped tracking in May of 2021. But in England, we were getting good data until mid-year. And we were seeing that it's almost, I think, 134% more deaths in the vaccinated kids, 10 to 14, than the unvaccinated. That's all-cause mortality. This is, it should break everyone's heart. I'm sure it does here, but it's amazing. Again, the messaging, they're so good at hiding this. Most people wouldn't have any idea that this actually happened. Again, triple vaccinated do the worst in England, once again. And so, you know, one of the things we say, it provides immunity, but only for the manufacturer. And you see, you all heard what's happening on the soccer pitch. All these athletes are dying, okay? And we have reasons. They have figured it out. It's not from the COVID virus. I mean, it's not from the vaccine. It's from COVID. Or maybe referee whistles, okay? And I love this one. They have multiple things. Heart attacks, skipping breakfast cause the heart attack. This one, I love the one on winter vagina, whatever that is. And men can get winter vagina, by the way. In case you didn't know. Breathing too many times a day could cause a deadly heart attack. We all know that. Stress. So the misinformation is constant. So I just want to quickly, I'll run down this real quick. Pharmacokinetics everywhere, especially ovaries, could have caused fertility problems. Well, let's go to men. The semen counts are lower, right? And they supposedly recover after one of these, but after 5, who knows? We have data from countries that have reported. They said, the fact checker said when we talked about this last year, I was called an anti-vaxxer, one of the top 10 in the United States, that it was not affecting fertility. All I said at the time was, a lot of it's going into the ovaries, so it's going to cause inflammation because that's what the product's designed to do, and it certainly might affect fertility. That was my statement. And we're seeing, you know, this basically 10% reduction in fertility this first quarter in much of the countries in Europe that are reporting. Do lipid nanoparticles go across the blood-brain barrier? This has been well known. I just pulled this study. There's multiple studies. We all know that's what they do. They're really good at this, and so there's no surprise here. We're seeing increase in cerebral venous thromboses. And this is basically showing, I think, one of the earlier speakers talked about this. The lipid nanoparticle itself is inflammatory. This is well known, and that's one of the reasons of the danger of the product. It's not just the foreign protein, which is inflammatory, but the lipid nanoparticle itself is very inflammatory. You don't need the lipid nanoparticle. The lipid nanoparticle alone can cause a lot of problems. So it's a very dangerous product because you're creating a foreign protein, but you're also wrapping it with a fake lipid nanoparticle. And there's a lot of things that it goes through that basically show it acts in itself as an adjuvant. I think this is one of the most important studies because it addresses several things. And I think, you know, in this study they found that the production was going on for 60 days or more. They stopped the study in a lot of patients. And this is such an important study. It also highlights something we call immune imprinting, which in a sense, if you start attacking this virus, this one protein, Wuhan 2020, basically you get blinders. You've got all your immune system focused in one place. And so you can't fight things here and here because you've got your natural killer cells, your cytotoxic T cells, your complement cascade, your antibody production, everything going, because you give 1 shot, 2 shots, 3, your immune system's smart. It ramps up first, second, third, fourth gear. It basically makes an adjustment over and over. And so I think Dr. Vanden Bosch is here, and he's the best at describing all this, and he's influenced a lot of our thinking. But I look forward to hearing his talk today about this immune imprinting and all these things on the virus itself that are creating a lot of the problems that will probably never win unless we take a different strategic approach.
Richard.
Done? Okay. So that basically kind of wraps up. Ryan Cole hit this. Yeah, I've got a few more. Yeah.
So Richard always puts a lot of slides together, and we usually have to have it talk a little faster.
I already covered all the stuff, actually. And I think, in the end, we're going to see nature wins, God wins, we're going to win. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm really tired. Thanks to all the organizers, the people behind the scenes that sometimes don't get enough credit. I know how hard you guys work, so man, kudos to you. Kudos to you guys. Oh, a little closer, okay. Kudos to you guys for being here. I hope I don't forget anything because this is the first time I'm live and in person, so bear with me here. Oh, and thanks. This isn't a cheerful talk, so I'm glad that Richard was cracking some jokes, because this one's not funny. So it's basically going to be a literature review, some of the most important papers coming out that relate to fertility issues in the context of these injections, along with some VAERS data. So this is the topic, the focus on fertility, some data, and what the studies are showing us. Does this go? Where do I point this? Oh, okay. So just as a reminder, and I think this is really important, we're still in an experiment right now. You guys are probably all aware of this. The phase 3 clinical trial of the Pfizer product was, it was only 6 months long. It was lamentable to describe it in positive terms. It's still ongoing. The end date is anticipated to be 2024. This probably has a lot to do with them continually reducing the age groups. And interestingly, I found out when you look up this clinical trial number, you'll find out that they're not sharing individual patient data anymore. It's just crossed out. I thought that was kind of weird and interesting that people know that. I'm not a clinical trial person, but that seems kind of suspicious to me. We have Dr. James Thorpe, who's recently done a study of VAERS data, and he requested that I do a confirmatory analysis of his findings, which I was able to do. And he found abnormal bleeding in women. He also found many fetal disorders, as you can see in this chart on the right, up to 1,000-fold greater increase when compared to the past. So the Epoch Times wrote this up. Am I in your way here? The Epoch Times wrote this up, and I was quoted to have said this in the context of a recent VRBPAC meeting for the pre-EUA granting of these products into 0 to 4-year-olds, and I stand by my words. Safety data looks pretty bad. As everybody knows probably, but just to remind you again, the biodistribution reports from a FOIA-requested study from Japan, thank you Byron Bridle, showed that not only do these lipid nanoparticles biodistribute, but they bioaccumulate in such places as the ovaries. And that is bad news. And they stopped actually measuring the concentration levels of the lipid nanoparticles at hour 48 when they terminated the animals. So you'll notice that the curve is exponentially increasing. So if you just project that into hour 120, for example, this isn't real. This is just an idea to give everyone that we don't know to what levels, what concentration these lipid nanoparticles continue to accumulate to. So it's something really that needs to be investigated. This is not something that they didn't know about, which is one of the malfeasant issues that I have with this. This is a study that was published in the Journal of Controlled Release, 2012, so that's 10 good years ago. And they did a study using the exact same animals, Wistar rats and mice, and it showed that not only the nanoparticles that they investigated accumulate, but they accumulate in the ovaries. So it's not like they didn't know. This paper came up, it's really important for everyone, thank you, to know about. This is another point that we were told that reverse transcription was not going to be possible for these modified mRNA products. In fact, it is possible, and it has been shown to happen in a human liver cell line. And the problem I have with this in the context of fertility is that the endogenous reverse transcriptase that is used in order for this to occur is something called line 1, which is endogenous to humans, and it's implicated in embryogenesis. So the fast uptake of the Pfizer product was shown in human liver cells, like I said, and that leads to changes in expression levels of this line 1, reverse transcriptase. This is a chart from a paper that was published in Nature Genetics in 2017, which clearly shows that the line 1 expression level has to be at a certain amount as per the stages of embryogenesis. And if it's not at a certain amount, then you're going to have problems with developmental arrest. So this is something that really needs to be looked into with regard to these products. As most of you probably know, I do look at VAERS data. I see this kind of as the leaves rustling in the wind as evidence. And in the context of fertility, we can approach this from the pregnancy point of view, or we can look pre-pregnancy at the menstrual cycle. So I'm just going to show a little bit about the abnormal menstrual bleeding that's been reported in VAERS and also in published papers. So this is a chart that shows the VAERS data for abnormal bleeding, menstrual disorders as of September 9th. It's normalized to CDC data that's age stratified. And you'll notice that the N, which is the absolute count, is approximately 43,000. You can see some of the example keywords at the bottom that I used to extract this data. And the 25 to 39-year-olds, surprise, surprise, have the highest rates at 48 per 100,000. But I want to point out that this is not including the underreporting factor. So if you consider my modest estimate of what the underreporting factor for a severe adverse event might be, which is 31, then you get a rate of 1 in 67 women who are experiencing these problems, which it doesn't sound unrealistic when I'm listening to the ground, or I have my ear to the ground to what the women are actually saying. When you compare this to the past 5 years of VAERS data, this is normalized per total number of adverse event reports per year. The past 5 years for all vaccines combined. So it's even more staggering because in 2021, 2022, it's only for 3 products, the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the Janssen. So you can see here that, you don't need statistics, it's not comparable. The mean over the past 5 years for the menstrual disorders, these are the exact same measure codes that I pulled out, is 175 compared to 5,033. This slide I wanted to keep in because can I swear? Yes? The amount of bullshit online when you go in search of information now, you guys, I don't know if you're looking, but it's staggering. This one popped up. This was written by a woman in March 25th, 2021, which is a long time ago. And she definitively states that the products, the mRNA products, will not induce any fertility issues. And it's just, I don't know I was trying to think of the word to describe what saying that makes me feel, because it's beyond malfeasance. There's no way for anyone to make that statement because we have no long or short-term safety data in the context of fertility or pregnancy. So I think that's quite shameful, to say the least. Yet another piece of evidence, a paper was published in Cells in 2022 that showed that human ovarian cells are infectable by SARS via the spike ACE2 mechanism. So, with the spike being the template that is the template encoding the spike protein, this also raises some very valuable questions that need to be answered here. This is another paper that was published in Science Advances in 2022 in July. It shows menstrual bleeding changes after SARS injection. So this is in the context of the injectable products. And you'll see that it's about half of the women did report regular menstrual cycles whereby it was heavier. I'm sorry, they reported heavier bleeding. Breakthrough bleeding was observed in 71%, which is a lot, on contraceptives, and 66% of postmenopausal women started bleeding again. So not only do we have these increases in rates, we have increases in weird stuff happening that shouldn't be. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's very concerning. This is a paper that showed molecular mimicry, which they actually mapped 27 human proteins, pentapeptides, which are just sequences of 5 amino acids that were linked to oogenesis, placentation and decidulization. And this is very concerning in terms of an autoimmune reaction in the context of the female reproductive system. Again, in the context of the injectable product of Pfizer, menstrual cycle symptoms in healthy women were reported to be increased, menstrual changes, heavier bleeding, etc. And interestingly here, this is just a point of interest, I didn't draw any conclusions. The women who reported menstrual changes there was a really statistically significantly high association between that, the irregularity, and the women on medications. And one of those medications, regular medications, one of them were SSRIs. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but recently it was found out that SSRIs aren't really doing what we thought they were doing. So again, it's another point of interest that I think warrants investigation. Another study was published, the one on the right here, by a group reporting on VAERS adverse events in the context of pregnant women from December 2020 to October 2021. Another group published a brief review saying, yay, we agree. And then another group came along and did an editorial and said, we don't agree. So I agree with the ones that don't agree. They concluded this. And this is one of the tables from that paper. And it's not the most important thing I want to point out here. Their VAERS numbers weren't what I calculated them to be, but I'm not going to split hairs about that because VAERS is inherently weird. But this one is important. Now, what I did was I pulled out all of the women that had reported an exposure to a vaccine, as in the past 5 years, or to these products, the mRNA products, in 2020, the same time frame, 2020 December to October 2021. And then I took the number of women who reported having a spontaneous abortion of that subset. So in the past 5 years, the rate of spontaneous abortion in the context of exposed women was 21%, which is in contrast to what we have with these products, which is more than twice. So actually, I thought that was quite staggering, and I don't know, maybe I'm gonna write something about that. I'm gonna leave this alone because Josh Getsko is gonna talk all about this, I'm sure. This is just about bad denominators and Israeli data. Eek. There's another study that came out of Canada. The authors claimed that the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are perfectly safe. Yet, in their own publication, they have this quoted: pregnant, vaccinated females had an increased odds of a significant health event within 7 days of the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know, there are many contradictions there. Watch this movie. Watch this interview. Dr. Luke McClendon from Australia, amazing guy. I watched from beginning to end, really, watch it. And I don't want to leave the males out, but then I'm going to finish up because this paper is very important and it was highly censored. It was published in Andrology this year. It showed that semen concentration and total motile count was impaired. And of course, they used the word temporary, just like they used the word temporary with myocarditis. So sorry, I'm not buying it. Same thing in VAERS. If you pull out just a few keywords involving male sexual health reports, you get the same kind of profile, not as bad looking as the female, but we're still early in the data. And again, if you incorporate the underreporting factor, the rate becomes 1 in 686. Oh yeah, you know, I don't have to read that out, but it doesn't sound really fun for men. Again, if you look at the past 5 years of data, the story isn't as obvious as it is for the females, but we still have 1.4 times higher reporting of these problems in the context of the COVID products. So the take-home message for me, even for people who don't want to buy a word that I'm saying or reporting on, because I'm not really saying anything, the risk-benefit analysis that you have to do is so simple. The risk from the shots is death, and it seems like your susceptibility to COVID goes up wacko nut bar job high if you do get an injection or 2 or 3. It seems to go up incrementally, as a matter of fact. And if you're pregnant, it seems to increase the risk of spontaneous abortion. So it doesn't seem like the scale is balanced there in terms of the risk. Nobody needs these shots, in my opinion. We don't have any long-term safety data even now. We're collecting it. That's why I started with saying that we're in an experiment now. We're collecting the data. The peer-reviewed literature is painting a picture with the words precautionary principle all over it. Children don't need these shots. They never did. And I would never recommend taking the risk. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I hope I was all right and I didn't talk too fast. That's my new Substack newsletter, and that's my website where you can find VAERS updates. So thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Pierre Kory, please.
So I'm going to start by saying that 2.5 years ago, I worked leading a major intensive care unit. I was publishing, doing research, teaching. I read the New York Times every day. I was fully vaccinated. My children were fully vaccinated. I believed what I read in the medical journals, that they represented the best of science and only the best papers, the most accurate papers showed up there. And here I am 2.5 years later, and I'm not going to say I'm broken, but that whole reality I found out was completely false. And the way in which that journey went is that I became very interested as a physician in COVID and trying to figure it out with some colleagues. We read papers, we followed all the studies and data on therapeutics, we talked to doctors around the world, and little by slowly we put together protocols on how to treat COVID. And during that time, about 8 months after we started, we discovered that there was a medication called ivermectin, which was showing incredible efficacy in a number of different sources of data. And we understood that it was effective. We started using it. We wrote a paper. And so I'm bringing up ivermectin in the context of the vaccines because what I learned after becoming an expert, and I didn't know what we really were, I knew we were becoming an expert at a drug. I didn't understand that we were striking at the heart of the pharmaceutical industry. And by learning about that drug, I got to see, like what was revealed to me in these last 2.5 years is the decades of control and techniques that the pharmaceutical industry has to corrupt science. And I will tell you that science is horrifically corrupted. I would have never believed the things that I've seen. I saw it around ivermectin first, and that's where sort of my reality started to change, because after we started talking about ivermectin, nothing happened the way it should have happened. Things started to get really bad, and I started to see lies everywhere. I saw it from the best newspapers, the best magazines, from the mouths of the best scientists out of the agencies, and they were all lies. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And pretty soon I realized that what happened is that ivermectin is a generic drug. It's off patent, and had the world known of its efficacy, it would have destroyed everything. It would have destroyed the entire vaccine campaign, because very few people would have taken a vaccine. If you were offered a safe, available pill, you would have taken that rather than an experimental vaccine. It would have destroyed the markets for everything that the pharmaceutical company is trying to sell in COVID, whether it be antibodies, remdesivir. And then I learned about the history of the pharmaceutical industry. So 2 things about that industry. Number 1 is that it's a documented criminal industry. Number 2, its entire business model rests on destroying what are called repurposed or generic drugs. And so when I became an expert at a drug, I just thought that our expertise would be, well, I don't know if there was going to be a ticker tape parade, but I did think people would be appreciative of our expertise. And And we got attacked, and the medication got attacked, and the ways in which it got attacked, it led me to know a few things. I started to understand what propaganda is. I started to understand what narratives were. Within months, I could no longer read the New York Times because I saw every single thing was a narrative. When I say everything, maybe if it's fashion or music, no, but anything with political dimensions was clearly a narrative. And once you start to see narratives and propaganda, you can recognize them. And then I saw the same thing happen with the vaccines. And basically what I want to sort of talk about briefly in whatever minutes I have left is that my most recent focus is that the foundation of all of the lies, all of the propaganda, all of the fraud, I believe the foundation starts with the medical journals. And when I say the medical journals, I mean specifically the high impact medical journals. And there's journals are ranked by something called an impact factor. If you Google it, you will find that the top 5 or 6 in the world are the New England Journal of Medicine, the British Medical Journal, the Lancet, the Journal of American Medical Association, and then I'm going to add the Cochrane Library, because the Cochrane Library is considered the premier journal that does what's called the strongest level of medical evidence, which is a summary analysis of trials. Okay, why am I talking about those journals? It's because everything comes from them. And I thought that good papers of well-designed trials would get published. And what I discovered around ivermectin, and there's a lot of evidence around the vaccines, is if you look back to the beginning of the pandemic, right? So when this started, scientists very quickly started to look at the genetic sequence of this virus. And what was the first thought that they had that something might be wrong here is that they were being told a story that there was a wet market a couple of 100 yards away from one of the only labs in the world doing gain of function on coronaviruses, but yet it came out of the wet market, right? Remember that story that this was a bat origin or came from animals? And you have to see what happened next, right? So within a month, papers were published in prestigious journals telling the world's doctors and scientists that indeed, no, this did not come from a lab, right? So they tried to cover that up, but they did it with published papers. And there's a documentary which goes over the origins of this virus, which we know came out of the lab. It's a man-made virus. You could never get something this toxic this quickly. And then you could see in that first documentary, world-renowned scientists who had long published in many top journals throughout their career, they couldn't get their papers accepted. They had definitive proof that this was a man-made virus, and yet they couldn't publish it, right? So the two things I want to leave you with is that there's propaganda and censorship, but none of that propaganda and censorship could happen unless you have the science to support it. And what I discovered is that in these last 2.5 years, what appears in those journals is what they allow to appear in those journals. And I have firsthand knowledge, becoming an expert at ivermectin, meeting Dr. Tess Laurie over there, and she and I have worked, across the pond on different parts of this fraud. But seeing what's happened to her career and my career, and we have direct knowledge of many investigators of ivermectin who cannot publish their papers. They were consistently rejected from all the high-impact journals. And then what do you see show up in high-impact journals? These supposedly rigorous large trials, which don't show a statistically significant benefit, and then you see a parade of propaganda emanating. So they'll publish the paper one morning. I've had about 5 of these mornings in the last year, and I'm so tired of them. But you'll wake up, and the New England Journal published a paper showing that ivermectin doesn't work, and then you see masses of headlines. And I think this is about vaccines, right? I'm using ivermectin as an example, but I want to bring that to the vaccines as well. Is in my journey in studying the vaccines, because of what I learned around ivermectin, I saw the same tactics. We knew the data on the ground coming out of the more transparent health ministries was showing that these things were deadly and they weren't working, and the hospitals were filling with the vaccinated. Yet you saw narratives being propagated from journal articles showing they are safe. You're seeing these absurd statements of their safety in pregnancy. So everyone was being reassured through published journals in high-impact journals that these were safe and they were working. And as the data that was not coming out of those journals was becoming overwhelming, they had to start changing. But we've known for a lot longer than now how ineffective. I mean, this vaccine program has failed. It needs to be stopped worldwide. It should absolutely be stopped immediately. We're seeing, Jessica didn't bring it up, but we're starting to see these abrupt drops in birth rates 9 months after the peak rollouts of these vaccines. I mean, that's the science. We're starting to see that showing up in birth rates. And so what I want to say is, I know what the corruption is now. We've seen, so the two things that they've done, there's 4 tactics. And by the way, what I'm describing is something called Disinformation Tactics. It was invented by the tobacco industry, and it's been perfected by the pharmaceutical industry. The editors of those high-impact journals have talked for over 20 years, ex-editors, not current editors. When they leave, they all report that you can't really believe what's in the high-impact medical journals because there's so much pharmaceutical industry influence over what they publish and what they don't publish. And it's through that control that they do disinformation. And the four ways in which they do it. Number one, they reject studies, and basically disinformation are tactics that industries use when science emerges that is inconvenient to their interests. And they are really good at controlling science. And that's the point of what I wanted to tell you about, is I've learned a lot, and now it's almost an area of expertise. I'm studying the corruption and how it plays out, and I really think the foundation is really at the core and it's the heart. And it's really those big journals, because those journals can do 2 things. They can drive headlines. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of journals, but there's only a handful that drive the headlines immediately. And the pharmaceutical industry, they're fairly clever and sinister and malevolent and all those other things that we talked about. They're really criminal. They've figured that out long ago, and they've exerted control at that level, and they can get people to believe strange things. And the things that I see infect, and the ideas I see that got infected across the world, the whole world's doctors being taught that natural immunity is not a thing, that you just had COVID, but come over here so I can give you a vaccine. You guys realize that's completely insane, right? So, but yet you have the entire world's doctor, not saying the entire, but the vast majority doing really strange things. And they do that through science, through the corruption of science. And the papers that, if you look at Richard's talk and Jessica's talk, there are a couple of papers that'll slip into a few journals with very alarming data. But then you have another source of censorship and propaganda, which is, like I said, it doesn't drive headlines. It gets ignored. It's not in review papers. When you see reviews published in some of these journals, they, curiously, they'll leave out mention of that more disturbing data. And so it's really an attack. It's a constant attack on the science that threatens them. So basically what I've seen is nothing but unrelenting censorship and propaganda over all positive data of repurposed safe drugs. So they got the world to believe that hydroxychloroquine doesn't work and ivermectin is a horse dewormer. And so all I've seen is societies across the world, just the masses have been consumed with very strange ideas about what's really going on. And when you really know what's going on, it's very stressful. That's an understatement for what that is. It's very distressing, really, and it doesn't cease. And I keep thinking it's getting better. I think we keep talking about tomorrow, next week, right? It's going to blow open, Richard, and the truth will come marching down Main Street. We've been saying that for a year, and I don't think that's going to happen that way, but I do think with grassroots movements, a constant dedication fight for the truth, that, good science, good physicians, good guidance, good health guidance you can reach more people and you can save them. And I would say people have never needed good, ethical, conflict of interest-free public health officials and physicians. They've never needed them more than now, and they haven't gotten that. You have public health systems across the world whose leaders literally are in the service of the pharmaceutical industry, because all of those agencies work a certain way. You do not get to become a leader unless you know how to play well with pharmaceuticals. So, I don't want to reduce everything to the pharmaceutical industry, because who's really behind this and what their objectives are, I try to leave alone, but I will leave you with this. The way in which they've done it is they're using the tactics that the pharmaceutical industry has initiated and implemented and used to control vast swaths of the science and the public health agencies. And it's killing people like it's never done before. And they've killed many thousands. Many, many scandals, they pay their billions in fines and they walk on. This one, the scope and the scale is unprecedented in history, and we are in a massive humanitarian catastrophe, and there's two of them. We're not getting treated the right way to protect ourselves against this disease, and the vaccines are killing hundreds of thousands. It's going to be approaching millions soon. I'm sorry if that wasn't the most positive talk. That's what it is.
So I just want to take a moment. Most of you don't realize these two scientists have worked from the beginning together, but this is the first time that they're actually physically in the same place. So we're going to take a special moment for two of them to say hi.
Dr. Kory actually promised me a big hug when we met in person. So. I'd also like to just take a moment to remember, because I think we've all forgotten how it began. World Council for Health wouldn't exist, probably, and I'd probably still be working for the World Health Organization if I hadn't seen Dr. Pierre Kory's testimony to the United States Senate in December 2020, which took enormous bravery. And in fact, many of us woke up at that time and thought, what on earth is going on? So Dr. Kory is the seed for great change. He's the seed of the better way. And I just wanted to remind us all. Please give him a big hand of applause. Thank you.
This is why we do this. It's very important for all of us to be together and to actually discuss these things in person. And now we're going to continue with Dr. Nasir.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Maria Moggs and the whole team make this possible to be here today to speak to Europe, to Asia, to Oceania, South America, North America, Central America, and Africa. I am part of a huge movement in Brazil called Médicos pela Vida, which is Doctors for Life. We started this March 2020, and there was a group now, is almost 20,000 doctors working together. And this support us. Like me, I went to 72 public audience to present to the Congress, to the mayors, to the cities and the states. What's the dangerous experiment? Never happened in the world with the human body. So my field is neuroscience, so I'm gonna present to you one of the most dangerous things that these experimental product can make in our brains. Let's start it. So you guys know that this product's called vaccine is not vaccine. This is a genetic therapy. It's my field. So there's the experimental products that we have in Brazil. I think you guys know. So there's two types, more than two types, there's three types in Brazil. We call Coronavac, Sinovac from China, which is like a part of virus, inactivated, the adenovirus vector, and mRNA. We don't have Moderna, actually, fortunately, too. So many things happen. These gene therapies are so different, and goes to the place that we're not supposed to be, which is the central nervous systems. So you guys know this, I don't understand here, but nanoparticles, polyethylene glycol, and spike protein. That's the team that can make the brain and neurons so unhappy. And they're gonna show you. There's a lot of a risk of vaccines, clot disease, autoimmune disease, cancer disease, but it's not the point that, everyone here addressed it before me, very elegant in this pathology presentation yesterday and today. So this is not vaccines, but they have a special situation that it's very important to address. One of this is something that in Brazil happened a lot because we have Johnson & Johnson and we have AstraZeneca. Both, they have those sinus thrombosis. I have been working for 30 years in neurology and emergency rooms. And I can mention, like, I had an article actually published in this field with 15 cases. And in 12 years of studying patients with the huge ICU and ER, and just to watch these patients come and have this diagnosis. It's so rare. And then you start to find these patients like young people, health people, people who didn't have anything before, and then they have those, deadly conditions. So this is the vaccine that works. It's not what I want to show to you because it takes a lot of time to discuss every point. So I have just 15 minutes. I'm going to be sharp this. So the way it is, formation of antibodies and by the spike protein. You make your cell make spike protein, and this spike protein, you have antibody against the spike protein that you yourself did. So what is this? This is an immunogenic platform. Now we have autoimmune disease. Is that right? Yeah, that thing works. So spike protein is very toxic. And why is it so toxic? Because all the alterations that my colleagues here presented, that's because they trespass the blood-barrier, BBB, blood-barrier, and it goes inside the brain. It's very easy to spike to the nanoparticle, goes inside the hematological brain barrier. So this is important findings that it's hard to explain if you're not in medical field, right? But yes, if you have, for instance, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, ALS, and all kinds of situations that Professor Bhakti spoke today. He mentioned by the capillary thrombosis, but it's not only this. One of the major things that really worries us like a scientist, it's because they have a formation of a prion, PRP, prion protein. What is this? This is because the formation of spike protein you have in the spleen, and then you have like a kind of nesting formation, and goes inside the vagus nervus and through the central nervous system. So we have this problem. We have also the viral infections that you didn't see before. You have COVID, you have like herpes, you have facial palsy, Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy after vaccine, mRNA vaccine, it's a lot. Remember this in the trial of Moderna. I think all the patients had this Bell's palsy, but it's just, transient. But it's not only this. This is because you have the kind of infection in central nervous system or peripheral nervous system. And it can take longer. So Prionic disease is a disease that we heard. Calmette disease is the prionic disease, right? Creutzfeldt-Jakob in the human being is prionic disease. This is so dangerous. It's not one disease that you like to do that. In my clinic, before I did 2 biopsies in my life, and the patient had Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. This is years ago. We have to discard everything you use in the opera in war because it's so aggressive, this disease. You know, guys, this, because you have more here in Europe than we have in Brazil. So When you see this spongiform formation in the brain, this is the pathological view of Prionic disease in central nervous system. But people just think about this, but it's not only Creutzfeldt-Jakob or called disease. It's a Huntington's disease, it's a Parkinson's disease, it's ALS. All this kind of disease became more frequent after this mRNA and DNA vaccination through the world. So, it's all now, I mean, all this depends of the situation of the germ cells and Parkinson's disease. We don't have this Parkinson's disease in young people so often. You don't see this Huntington's disease like, oh, it's very frequent in my clinic. It's not. Huntington's disease is a rare disease, even if you have a very busy neurological office. So it's now where we have all this way to the brain that we're now realized that you can infer very clear the relationship between PRP and those diseases that I mentioned here. And I cannot have time to, go deep. But the thing I wanna point out to you guys, it's the S1 component of spike proteins appears after 1 day or less than that after mRNA vaccine and becomes longer. Nobody can just say, oh, it's just 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, but it stays longer in the very target organs in our body. So children are by far most vaccinated generation in history. You guys know this. We have been fighting against COVID vaccination. 5, 11 years old, adolescents, and babies. We are fighting every day against this because the agenda likes to push this. It's absurd because those people, those children, they don't have anything about COVID, unless they're very immunosuppressed, but it's not common. It's real, a genocide. So, be very careful with these vaccines, with an adequate evaluation and aggressively promoted and uniformly public with the potential for huge and irreversible consequences. One of them is depletion of progenitor B cells in the bone marrow, causing ability to assemble new antibodies to infection agents. Both mRNA and vector viral DNA may be a path to disabling disease of this future time, but the prior-like action of spike protein. We will see an alarm number of various neurodegenerative disease with Parkinson's, Creutzfeldt, ALS, Alzheimer's, and other in young people. Unfortunately, you'll not be sad that was the vaccine, convenient for the farmers that gain in the vaccine and the treatment of the same disease. All right, so there's some part of the side effects, and I have to say that he died. He passed away in the last 3 months, and before that, he helped me a lot to represent in front of the WHO, OPS in Brazil, and the Ministry of Health. Everything he did for me, it's a real master. And Professor Luc Montagnier, he said that the unvaccinated will save humanity. We must avoid hearing and giving voice to those who do not have the right to do so, and let the science speak. I repeat, it's the unvaccinated who saved humanity. So, This picture says everything. I can tell you, nobody can face this in your kids. Any central nervous system disease like this, nobody can face this. I have a father who came to me, he called me one day, and he said, Dr. Nasser, help me. I don't know what I can do. I'm gonna make a suicide. Because last week, I watched the TV, the journal, and it said, go and take the vaccination for your kid because he's gonna have a scholarship in a public school. And he took because he was like off money. And then 3 days after the Pfizer, this kid had a seizure. He had a huge thrombosis. He had the MTFR positive with nobody cares before gene. So the baby's dead. The father's dead. So this is the paper that everybody can, pick it up. The Stefan Seneff, which is unbelievable. She's a so nice person. She's an MIT person. It's like a high level of a scientist. And she got the same as everyone here of us have every day shadow banning in the media stream, in the social media. We have YouTube channel canceled. We have Instagram canceled. We are canceled. We are censored. That's because we follow Luc Montagnier advices. Get from the abortion advice. You cannot publish your picture with Dr. Malone and yourself. Facebook cancel you right away. So this is his speech, and I used this in Senate in Brazil. So here's the paper. It's the paper of the last paper Professor Luc Montagnier published, 16 cases of Creutzfeldt-Jakob in French and Switzerland. So after COVID vaccine jabs. So my final alert is prophylaxis should be done until the baseline returns to normal. Use ivermectin, use hydroxychloroquine, use treatment. You are doctors. As long as we don't have herd immunity established, prophylaxis we need to be maintained and replete every 6 months. There is no way to take pressure of infectivity without taking the immunopressure. It's highly vaccinated countries. It rather start with the virus than start with the people. When you eliminate those that cause immunopressure, everything goes back to normal. How they are doing is leaving the people who inevitably die. Nature will bring balance to the ecosystem. Countries with a low vaccination rate will survive, type South Africa. That's why this experiment is unpredictable. The damage will be massive. All ages were victims of the experiment that was to protect only the vulnerable. Remember that. Should never be ordered vaccination, but debate warranty. Thank you so much.
Our last panelist, Dr. Paul Alexander, is having a family emergency, so he will not be able to join us via Zoom. But I just want to close this panel with a few words. Thank you, Austria, for having us. Thank you, Dr. Maria Hubmer-Moog, for everything she has done. It's my honor to be a part of this amazing community. There are physicians, scientists, common people, lawyers who have joined this community of people. There are many organizations that we really need to thank. And I'm going to start with my home organization, World Council for Health, and everything they have done behind the scenes. With FLCCC, who has fought this fight from the beginning. With Global COVID Summit, my American organization, with Médicos Pela Vidas, our brothers and sisters in Brazil, Médicos Pela Verità, with Dr. Natalia Prego, with many, many organizations all around the world. It is not easy sometimes to be up here, but this is where we have to be at this moment in our life. And I'm just going to read a few words of a Global COVID Summit Declaration, because we must restore the people's trust in medicine, which begins with free and open dialogue between physicians and medical scientists. We must restore medical rights and patient autonomy. This includes the foundational principle of the sacred doctor-patient relationship. And we declare, and the data confirms, that the COVID-19 experimental genetic therapy injections must end. Thank you.
We're behind on time, so we're not going to have a panel.
Thank you again, dear Katharina Lindley, also a steering committee member of World Council for Health. We said it's just beautiful when we have the opportunity to do a Better Way conference again, and we said that we are able to have our steering committee members as hosts for the panels, and me as the Austrian and my friend Christoph Klote as the German hosts who welcome you and who will say in the end of the evening some remarks and closing words. And it's just beautiful that all of the steering committee members are here to host different panels. And I hope that all the steering committee members are right now in this room. I'm just not seeing Mark Trozzi. I hope Mark Trozzi is here. Probably anyone can look for Mark Trozzi. His son is going to get him. Because today we also celebrate something, and so for everybody in this room and for everybody who is joining us online in the live stream, it's a special day today that we also want to take as an opportunity to celebrate a very special date. It's not really this day that is a birth date, but it was September 2021 that the World Council for Health was founded by Dr. Tess Lawrie and Dr. Jennifer Hibbert, and also, please stand up, Tess Lawrie. Jennifer Hibbert, I hope she's also, yes, she is here. And there are also two other members, Dr. Tracy Chandler from New Zealand, and also Dr. Karen McKenna. She's not a doctor, but she is very engaged in health and helping to find new ways. They are not here, but so a couple of people formed the World Council for Health, but very soon this World Council for Health family was getting bigger and bigger. Shabnam Palesa Mohammed joined, also Dr. Kat Lindley, also Dr. Mark Trozzi. I hope his son found him, otherwise we asked Rain Trozzi for now to come on stage on behalf of his father, because Rain Trozzi, by the way, Dr. Mark Trozzi's son, he is in the World Council for Health Youth Committee. So if there are young people listening to me right now, we have a World Council for Health Youth Committee. You can send us an email on the contact email address that we have on the worldcouncilforhealth.org webpage, because it's so important that we also reach out to the young generation, and that the young generation comes up with ideas and brings in their inspiration and bring in their ideas, which is so important, because sometimes we are, a little older and we just don't know how to probably deliver the message so that also young people understand what we want to tell them. Hey, Mark Crosby is doing a sprint. I also have to say that what I do right now is kind of a surprising moment. And I was not telling the steering committee members that I was going to bring them on stage now. So it's like ultra last minute. And here is Christoph Blote. We were just doing an interview, so we also like ran over to come here. Christoph Blote is my dear friend here from Germany. And we have something that we want to bring up now. I don't know if we can deliver it right now, otherwise we will do it in the end after the last panel, because I think if there is a birthday, there should be a birthday cake. And a birthday cake is something that we should better eat when we have a coffee break. So we will bring after this next panel a lovely birthday cake, and I invite you all to come then, when we have the birthday cake delivered, to sing along with us a happy birthday for the World Council for Health. So just that you be prepared. And we really want to thank all the members of the subcommittees of the World Council for Health. Please, a big applause. We have a Law and Activism Committee, we have a Mind Health Committee, we have a Health and Humanity Committee, yes, Bioethics Committee. We have so many subcommittees, and steering committee members are joining these committees. We have the Media Committee, which Uwe Alschner and I are chairing. So we have lots of committees, lots of people involved, and of course we have beautiful, beautiful people who make this all happen. That, like Zoe Strickland and her little baby here in her belly. Actually, at the first Better Way conference, Tess Laurie said that Zoe Strickland is somehow the midwife of the Better Way, because she was doing so much hard work that we can have World Council for Health as it is right now. And also a big, big thank you to Emma Sron, who is here from America. She's our, let's say, content manager. She's doing so much work, and it's just, here she is. I was like, where is she, sorry. Okay, so here's Emma Sron. She's like fantastic. She also so many different things on such a high level. Thank you so much. Like the live stream, for example. These two ladies make it possible. Thank you to all of the other people that I did not mention now that I forgot. I'm sorry for that, but in World Council for Health, there are so many beautiful people working. And we also ask you, if you want to voluntarily join the World Council for Health, and if you want to help to spread the word, so we can find a better way together. And as we are finding it, we want to invite so many more people to come and join us on this beautiful path, on this powerful path. And now I want to hand over the microphone to Jennifer Hibbert.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your lovely words. And we want to thank all of you for joining us and being part of our family of the World Council. When we conceived of developing and forming the World Council, it's amazing. It's been a year, and it's amazing. Oh, there, that made a difference. Thank you, everybody, for joining our family of the World Council. And as we conceived of developing and forming the World Council a year ago, we are just so happy to have so many people a part of this. We have a wonderful steering committee here, and we are growing constantly by the day. And it's only with your support and with your innovative understanding of what's going on, and we want to help you and help each other get the right message out to the world. And just like our next forum will be Mind Health, and a lot of it is in how we communicate with each other. We may have a lot of difficult information to put out there, but please remember to always communicate it with a really positive message. And we're all learning about what's going on and what's coming, and we're all trying to anticipate, but actually we're all finding our way forward together. And we will find a better way forward together for a better world. And thank you so much for being here, everybody. Thank you.
Happy birthday, World Council for Health. Let's celebrate. So I think everybody in the audience knows how to sing Happy Birthday. So I'd say I pass the microphone to someone who can sing better than I can. And yeah, I just, you know, move my lips and you sing.
All right, well, you guys gotta help me, okay? So, I guess it'll be Happy Birthday, World. There we go, now we're visiting. This is what's a good key.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, World
Council for Health.
Happy birthday to you.
Well, I'm speechless, actually. Well, you know, I think we all just, the time has gone so quickly. A year has passed like that, and I think everyone has felt the speeding up of time. And it certainly feels like just yesterday when we were established, and yet we've achieved so much with your help. And so, you know, that, along with just a big thank you to Maria for everything, I mean, remembering it's birthday time as well as organizing all of this and this most beautiful conference. And, you know, I think I am speechless, and just to say, you know, thank you all for coming and contributing and showing up with us today, especially since it's our birthday. Thank you.
Okay, so Jennifer Hibbert will stay with me because she is the host of the next panel. Before we start the next panel, and Jennifer Hibbert is going to ask the speakers for the next panel to come on stage, I really want to let you know that I know it's really windy, almost stormy outside, and really cold in Vienna. And you probably know that we are giving the live stream for free. People don't have to pay to watch the experts on stage right now. And I said that already yesterday in the media conference. It's really not so easy to ask people for money, but I really need to do this because my organization, wir zeigen unser Gesicht, we show our faces, meaning we take a stand. We put this whole thing together. As you can imagine, we have to pay for the location, for security, and for the stage, for the tech team, and for so many other things to make a thing like this happen. And so I'm having a non-profit organization, and I can just say all the things that we need to pay for will be paid for, and if there is something that is too much on the bank account later after this conference, all the money will go to World Council for Health later. So this World Council for Health has also a mission, a worldwide mission to help people around the world and to make great projects happen. So please, this is really a call for action for all of us. So people who like to go on the streets, for example, in Austria, when I organized over a dozen peaceful rallies, and all of the people who liked the way my friend Nadia Hupman, who is not here today, but she is a brave mother of 2 boys. She and we did so many rallies, and we just said if just every person who liked the way we did the rallies by not just saying resistance, but by bringing great content on stage, by inviting people, vaccinated or unvaccinated, to join us for so many important topics, not just the COVID, not just the Corona topic, now even more than ever, also the topic of the economic crisis in which we are in right now. We really just ask you for $1, for €1, for whatever you can give, give, please support the mission, because then you are part of it and you make it happen as well. Thank you so much for your support from all around the world. On the Wir zeigen unser Gesicht.org webpage or on the betterwaymedia.org webpage, you will find the donation button. I kindly ask you to give whatever you can, and thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Let me add to this, to everyone out there in the world, and especially here in Vienna, for everyone who is deciding to make a donation, 20 euros or more, there will be a wonderful shirt waiting for you to remind you of this wonderful event. It says Better Way Conference, and it has the Vienna skyline on it, and you can get it up there. So 20 euros or more, any donation will be rewarded with a t-shirt either in white or in bright blue. So it's over there. Thank you very much.
Okay, this next forum is focused on the chaotic psychological effects of COVID-19, on how to strategically position to provide solutions for all of those affected by this dystopia. We have here a group of international experts to present effective communication strategies for guiding all of us to solutions we need to find a better way forward. I would like to welcome onto the stage Matt Hudson. He's on the stage. David Sherr-Lambos. Christian Buckland. And Majid Nawaz. And on Zoom, we have Michael Alexander. He will come at the end of our discussions here. Now, I'd like to introduce Matt Hudson. He's a published author, professional speaker, and a founder of the theory split-second unlearning. Matt believes the future for our health begins with education. And I'm going to make sure he introduces and talks about the book that he is completing now, and an amazing app that you have to hear about. So now you're on the line, Matt. You have to talk about that.
Thank you.